Yay.
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 Yay. Okay, so we're trying to sit so that we look good. Right? Okay, so we're trying to sit like we look good.
Sit like we were on an ice cream.
Okay, so we're back. Episode number 2 on the Compassion Project. And we're going to talk about what is compassion and what is self-compassion.
Well, you know, I've thought a lot about this, and it's an evolving thing with me to personally talk about. I can regurgitate something I've read, but I really don't like to paraphrase
Because we
something
could
I've read.
all Google it, right?
Right. But to know what it is and what it means to you in different stages is what we're really talking about. So it really means that you have peace and nothing else.
So is it in the Compassion Project, really it's like the goal, if we can say it that, I mean the experience is enough, but the goal is really the sense of peace.
But I'm going to say it's very difficult to have peace
It
and
is.
nothing else. And to demand that of yourself, I think can cause non-compassion in itself, right?
Because what is non-compassion? For me, I realized it was the self-critical talk that was going on.
Right. And as spiritual practitioners, you know, you say, I'm not being very spiritual.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Well, you're going to have moments like that. You're going to have moments of contrast.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to know what is not peace to know what peace is. Right?
So like we were just talking about, I've been drinking wine lately because it's summer in Portland and it's kind of amazing.
And the wines are really good in Portland.
Yeah, and it's this transition. And then part of me thinks, well, I'm a meditation teacher, and so I'm not really in a state of peace or connection when I'm drinking wine. And then there's kind of like a guilt there, right?
Well, you know, so I'm going to just interject this.
Yeah.
What if you were okay with drinking wine?
Right.
What if you were okay with having a glass of wine? And couldn't you have peace and drink a glass of wine?
Right.
But you have some judgment about that, you know, you shouldn't be drinking wine because there's a lifestyle that you think you need to follow.
Right.
And it doesn't fit that. So right there is a separation. And it's not a thought that you put in your mind. Somebody gave you that thought.
And that gives you anxiety, right?
Because you're not following the directions.
And so we had just talked about that on our, you know, what is the absence of peace? Usually it's anxiety, what we call anxiety.
Right, that's correct.
And anxiety comes from this idea of, like for me in that example, that I should be a certain way, that I should have behaviors that are a certain way. And if I don't, it has a meaning, right?
I'm going to say anxiety is any time that you've left your connection to your higher self. And to really be into when you are in your higher self, you're also connected to source. Okay? So I really don't want to discuss that in this particular video, but let's just talk about the higher self. And the higher self is when you're doing things for your highest good. Okay? So whether you drink wine or don't drink wine is how you feel about drinking wine, or when you do drink wine, how much are you drinking, and are you self-sabotaging your life? Okay? So let's say you drink a case of wine, you know, chances are that you're not going to be able to be in your authentic higher self, and you're going to feel badly about the things that result out of that. So that creates the anxiety. Result out of that. So that creates the anxiety.
So we talked about self-compassion being self-love, and so we'll circle back to the anxiety, but self-love sounds so indulgent, doesn't it? It feels like you should just go to the spa, or you should tell everyone no, and it's kind of become an excuse to just be self-absorbed.
Well,
is that what it is?
No, I believe that self-love is knowing and moving in your truth. And so what truth means is what's really good for me, but it's also good for you too.
Right.
Okay, whether you accept that or not is your business.
Wow. Well, Lori, I mean, I don't even know what else we have to say about self-compassion except for that. So say it again. Self-compassion is
Moving in your truth.
And the self-compassion / self-love is, go.
Self-compassion, self-love is, what am I supposed to be saying?
Moving in your truth.
Moving in your truth. Moving in your truth, but you have to understand that the truth has another side.
Yes.
Okay, so the thing that you're talking about being self-indulgent is a one-sided truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's my assumption. You know, screw you. I'm going to go to the spa, or I'm depressed and I'm going to go on a shopping spree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you're going to pay the bill.
Mm-hmm.
So that isn't truth. You know, you and I working together, maybe we work together well, and maybe supposedly we didn't work together well. You know, this isn't working for me, and this possibly can't be working for, you know, Candace, because we're always at odds. So what's the best thing for both of us, not just me?
And so I want to explore this idea of moving in your truth throughout life, because I think this is where we're talking about all the anxiety comes up, right?
Right.
So you'd explained anxiety as what is this, your analogy, the space between?
You have this space that you're in your higher self, or connected to source, or some people say
Or in
God.
your heart. That's another way of saying it, right?
Right. In your authentic heart.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not talking about romantic love.
Yeah.
Okay, or my heart feels hurt, or my heart feels sad. We're talking about in your highest way of being. Okay, and that's really what you came here to do. And when you're in your highest way of being, you're experiencing joy. And so when we start criticizing ourselves, or we start pleasing others, or we start shutting down, or we get overwhelmed, we start moving away from that authentic way of being, and we're over here in hell. We're talking bad about ourselves. We don't like to be videoed because we don't like our
Isn't she great on video? Yeah.
Right? And so we have this space of where we're residing and moving through our day, and this authentic way of being. And that space in between is called anxiety.
And it's also because it's a learned behavior. There's a certain way we think we should be.
Right.
Right? We think that we should look a certain way, dress a certain way, be a certain way, speak a certain way, only speak of things, right? There's this whole idea.
So that's an idea in itself.
Yeah.
Because those ideas are not our original ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They were given to us. We call that knowledge.
We learned it in
Yeah.
school, from our teachers,
Right.
from our peers, from our parents.
Right. So self-compassion cannot be learned. Self-compassion has to be experienced. And that's the whole point in the work that you're doing. You've
the
got a piece of
compassion
paper.
project.
Certainly, I'm looking at your bookshelf here, and you have so many great books on spirituality and love and loving yourself. Now, if you've read all those books, why don't you have self-compassion, right? Because you cannot learn it. It's not something you can read in a book. It's something you have to experience.
And I didn't realize I didn't have self-compassion until I started the project.
Right.
Which I think is probably the case for most people, right?
I would say it's for most people. And so, we're talking about maintaining peace and nothing else. But we're in this world. People are going to cut us off on the freeway. People are going to betray us. People are going to let us down. People are going to disappoint us. And we will move out of peace. So we need a tool to move back into peace.
Hence the self-compassion project.
Right. And I don't want to say any more than that, because I don't want to give you a piece of information that you'll use. I want you to have the experience of what that tool is going to be for you.
Okay. And what do you think the effects of having greater self-compassion are?
Well, first of all, for me personally, I would be able to relax. I would be able to be in the flow of life. I would know, I'd have deeper faith, right? I know everything was being taken care of. I certainly would be sleeping better at night.
Right.
I wouldn't worry about money. I wouldn't worry about our relationship. As long as I'm moving in my highest truth, I know, that it's the best I can do.
So I wasn't going to talk about it, but it feels like we're in the right direction of it for this episode. But what do you think the essential components of self-compassion are? To have self-compassion, you need what?
I think, first of all, to have self-compassion, you really need to have the ability to look at yourself, to have awareness, to be able to step out of yourself and look at yourself in a non-judgmental way. almost as though you're exploring yourself, like you're an archaeological site, okay? When we go into an archaeological site, we don't say, oh, look at this piece of broken pottery, isn't this a bastard? Right?
Yeah.
We look at things analytically. Oh, isn't this interesting? Oh, here's a piece of that. I wonder what that's about. We need to look like, or we need to move through our own experience as though we're exploring a new territory.
And then, is spiritual practice important?
Well, I think it's essential.
Yeah.
I think so. First of all, you have to be able to look at yourself and decide what's working for you in your life and what's not. And then the second thing is you make a commitment to make a change. Some people say, this is who I am, and I don't care if it's working in my life or not. But, and look at your life in a Benjamin Franklin kind of way. This is the benefits and this is the costs. And then you make the commitment to change. And then you need to sit quietly and reflect, because you have all the answers. I no longer want to work at my job. What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm not making money, right?
And so the only way to really listen to that inner guru, as I like to say, is to have some kind of practice where you let silence in, and it could be anything.
Right, and that's where I think a lot of people get hung up. They think that practice means
you have to chant,
or you have to sit on a cushion.
Yeah.
Or you have to have some incense.
Yeah.
Or you have to do so much spiritual practice. But practice just means I'm practicing, right? Because, I might not get it right. All right? So you and I have an argument. I get upset. I sit down. I take a deep breath. And I begin my practice. How can I create peace in my life? What is the highest thing that I could do for myself and for campus at this point? And that's the spiritual practice.
And it could be someone just going out into nature, just creating space to receive your inner guidance.
Right, and we all know the right thing to do. Every one of us knows the right thing to do. But we default from the right thing to do. Right meaning for our highest good, which creates peace with ourselves, is that we move into fear and we get scared.
And so we've talked about what self-compassion can do. What have you seen? You obviously talked about why you started the Compassion Project and seeing addiction as a huge part.
Right.
What else is the result of not having self-compassion?
Disease, illness, serial relationships, relationships that go from one to another and they always end up badly. And it's kind of like I was talking to somebody recently, and she came in and we were discussing it, and I said, it's like you're painting everything with purple. You have this viewpoint on people that is not exactly working for you. And you've painted the whole place purple, and then all of a sudden you sit up and go, why is everything purple? That's what you get from spiritual practice. You say, my life is all purple, I want to go to pink. Where am I involved in making it purple?
And even in the 12-step process, I mean, they have one of their steps, one of their realizations is that there's a power bigger than them.
Right, and that I'm responsible. The change starts here. And so when we create that silence, we go back to look at our peace and how we can create peace, and we ask how we can create peace. And one of the tools that we'll talk about in later segments is forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Okay, so one more time for us, Lori. Self-compassion is
moving in your truth.
Moving in your truth. Okay, I love that. So we'll pause here. We'll move on to the next episode, and we're going to talk about how compassion helps with life purpose.
Okay.
And work.
Okay.
And how that's related to self-love and moving in your truth.
Yay!